Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for joining me. So I watched a video by Cecilia Regina about, I want to say the show Love Island, which I believe is on Netflix. I don't watch it, but the rest of America seems to be, and that's lovely. I see two beautiful dark-skinned black women, and they've been like caught up in a lot of controversy and stuff, not due to their actions, but in terms of how people receive them and everything. And anyway, Cecilia Regina has an amazing video about this where mentally deranged people have actually called for violence against these women because they don't like these women. One person complaining that the one of the women, I believe her name is Shelly, again, don't watch the show, I have seen them but I don't watch the show, was quote unquote too composed, so because she didn't act like a ghetto hood rat, then someone should hurt her in this person's deranged mind. And obviously that should never happen. But it's some sick racist people out there. I'm just gonna say this, okay? I am one of those, let me just tell you, I've been getting called an Oreo for more years of my life than not. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Grew up in a virtually all black environment. Yeah, it's sometime at some point maybe I'll get into the history of all this stuff. But anyway, grew up in a virtually all black environment. My mother is an intelligent and educated woman, and she raised her children to be so. Okay? And, if we said something that was like extremely obviously incorrect, then she would correct us. Like, I can't do no, or you know what I mean, like double negatives and things. My mom would correct my siblings and I. And so when I was growing up, I stood out because a lot of kids around me were not raised that way. And what people used to say when I was a kid was that you talk proper. Okay? I'm not kidding. People would assume that I went to private school because of how I spoke, especially in my environment. Like, had I been in a more diverse environment, maybe people would not have been as quick to say things like that. But because I grew up in a all black environment just about, then of course I had to go to private school. And just and I'm not saying this to like pat myself on the back or anything. This is actually kind of like weird for me to even talk about. But I can say that I have dealt with a unique kind of racism. Like my perception, because again, I grew up in a mostly black environment, so racism wasn't really much of a concern because most of the people I interacted with were black when I was a kid, right? But like being in a diverse city like Houston, where your neighbors can be white, Hispanic, whatever, then I started dealing with different personalities and belief systems, and I don't know. Here's my point though. My perception was that in general, racism, like if someone had an issue with the black person, basically heavy on the respectability politics, that if you carry yourself like Hillary Banks, if you will, and no, I didn't go out of my way to emulate Hillary Banks or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, if you carried yourself like that, then, white people who were racist wouldn't discriminate against you, at least once they, interacted with you, because they would say, oh, okay, that's a well-spoken black person, I don't have a problem with them. I remember one time, someone said to me, and it was a Caucasian person, they were quoting Chris Rock's joke that there's a difference between black people and the N-word. Except they didn't say the N-word, but that's what they said, that they didn't use the full word, if you know what I mean. They said there's a difference and stuff. And I'm thinking, baby, you're white trash. Like, respectfully, you're white trash. You know? And I'm sure respectable white people would feel the same way about you, hon. You know? Still thinking you're better than black people, girl. Anyway, but, anyway, why am I mentioning this? I just, like, but no, again, and I was much younger at the time, and I just, you know, bought into respectability politics, which I still think that there is truth in respectability politics, absolutely. However, it's not the end all be all, because there are some people that are just unhinged in their hatred. Their hatred is 150% illogical. You know, it's again, at some point I need to do a video on this, but I'm only talking about it because Cecilia Regina, like, triggered the hell out of me when, a quick story, when I went to Job Corps back in 2002, I'm from a middle class background. I mean, my mother at one time was a welfare recipient. I don't know if she'd care for me to mention that, but it's true. You know, she used to have food stamps when I was really, really little. And then she ended up finding her career, and her career took her to making 6 figures a year. Anyway, here's why I mention it though. Okay, so I grew up in a middle class situation. Both of my parents are doing okay. They're not rich people, but they're doing, you know, they don't want for anything, you know, both of my parents and stuff, and their kids don't want for anything. Okay. Well, I went to Job Corps, and a lot of the people that used to go to Job Corps were low income people who felt like they didn't have any options. I, on the other hand, was a middle class person, and what I experienced was a weird kind of discrimination because people couldn't put me in the ghetto queen box that they wanted to put me in because of me being black. They really wanted to put me in that box, and they hated me for it. And it's like, it makes me sad thinking about it. It's like, wow, like, people, if they don't know, like, if you don't let them categorize you the way they want to, and in a way that allows them to look down on you, then they will resent you, you know? And I remember I had this one teacher, this was at Gary Job Corps, and I'm not going to protect this bitch. I don't remember her name, but she used to have a boyish haircut, white woman with a boyish haircut. And there was this guy in my class who was a drug addict. I don't even know how he was there, because this guy was very clearly high, but I heard, like, some people did sneak in weed and smoked weed and all that stuff. Anyway, point is that he used to, like, flip out on me from time to time. And anyway, one day I commented something like, gosh, what's his problem? And he wasn't around when I said it, and this teacher snapped on me, and it was very clear it was a personal thing. This fucking racist bitch hated my guts because I wasn't a ghetto queen. Had I been like, oh yeah, I don't know what his fucking problem is, you know, whatever, if I had been this ghetto person, then she never would have had a problem with me. You know, and it was very obvious. By the way, he was a hood rat. I'm sorry to use that word, but we say that word, okay, whatever. Anyway, he was, and I wasn't. And like I said, I would run into, what I ran into was racist white people and non-black people, like Hispanic, who resented me because, again, they couldn't just put me down as an ignorant black person, you know, who could barely string a sentence together. You know, so that is one of the unique kinds of racism I personally have experienced. And it's weird, man. It's so weird. But, you know, this was a long time ago. You know, obviously I'm telling you about something that happened 23 years ago and everything. But yeah, it's